Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to deconstruct the absolute most shocking 90 minutes in World Cup history, the 2014 Mineirazo. We're going to break down exactly how a seemingly invincible giant of the sport was dismantled piece by painful piece. Because when Germany beat Brazil 7-1, it wasn't just a fluke, no way. It was this incredible collision between a tactical masterclass and a profound total emotional collapse. And today, we're going to use the tactics, the data, and the history to show you exactly how it all went down.
So, let's start with the big question. How does the greatest footballing nation on earth just collapse on home soil? To get it, you have to understand the stakes. Brazil hosted the 2014 World Cup with basically one singular desperate goal: to avenge the historic heartbreak of the 1950 Mineirazo, where they lost the final at home to Uruguay. That event was a literal national tragedy. The 2014 team was supposed to finally bring catharsis, but instead, they ended up suffering an even more humiliating trauma right in front of their own devastated fans, creating a completely new nightmare that fundamentally redefined modern football.
I want you to imagine standing right there in the stands of the Estadio Mineirao as this nightmare is unfolding. The sheer disorientation and heartbreak of the Brazilian supporters was palpable. You had people literally asking out loud, "Did that just happen? How did that happen? Why did that happen?" Fans were weeping uncontrollably in the stands. Kids were totally inconsolable. The whole atmosphere shifted in a matter of minutes, from this deafening, incredible roar of national pride to a stunned, almost funeral silence. It was a massive collective trauma, and we watched it happen in real time.
But to really figure out the why behind the collapse, we actually have to look at who wasn't on the pitch that day. Brazil went into this match missing two absolutely crucial pillars of their squad. First, a fractured vertebra sidelined Neymar, totally stripping Brazil of their individual attacking brilliance. But honestly, the much more devastating loss was their defensive anchor Thiago Silva, who was out on suspension. He wasn't just their best defender, he was the emotional regulator of the team. Without him, Brazil completely lacked the leadership they desperately needed to just put a foot on the ball, take a deep breath, and calm down the rising panic. What makes this match so fascinating is that it was a literal clash of completely different philosophies. Brazil brought this desperate, chaotic passion. They were essentially riding a wave of raw emotion, just hoping that individual brilliance and the energy of the home crowd would carry them across the finish line. On the flip side, you had Germany. They brought a decade of tactical evolution heavily influenced by Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. Under Joachim Löw, Germany had become this cold, ruthless machine built on high pressing, fluid ball movement, and sheer technical superiority. It was, quite literally, a team playing with its heart, running straight into a team playing with its brain. In the core of that German brain was their tactical setup, a beautifully cold, clinical 4-1-4-1 defensive medium block. This system systematically squeezed the life out of Brazil's midfield. By setting their line of confrontation just above the center circle, guys like Toni Kroos and Sami Khedira matched up perfectly to press Brazil's central midfielders, Luis Gustavo and Fernandinho. The result? Brazil couldn't build out of the back. Germany essentially just walked up and deadbolted the door to the center of the pitch.
That intense central pressure triggered an immediate chain reaction. Because Germany matched Brazil 1-for-1 in the middle and completely cut off those passing lanes, it forced Brazilian defenders like Dante and David Luiz into full-blown panic mode. I mean, when your midfield is suffocated, what else do your center backs do? They start blindly launching these hopeless, diagonal aerial balls, bypassing the midfield entirely. And the craziest part? Germany knew exactly what they were doing. They engineered this. They wanted Brazil relying on frantic, low-percentage long balls because it played flawlessly into their hands.
Because waiting to swallow up every single one of those desperate long balls over the top was Manuel Neuer. He wasn't just operating as their traditional goalkeeper, he was putting on an absolute clinic as a sweeper keeper. Before a Brazilian attacker could even process the pass, Neuer was already charging out of his box, sweeping the ball up, time and time again. Every single time a Brazilian defender thumped a prayer of a ball forward, Neuer was there to instantly kill the attack. For Brazil, it was just utterly demoralizing.
Meanwhile, out on the left flank, Brazil was basically leaving the back door wide open. Marcelo is, without a doubt, a wonderfully talented attacking fullback. But in this specific game, his aggressive, overlapping runs were downright suicidal. He was leaving behind rainforest-sized gaps in the defense, and Thomas Müller and Philipp Lahm were ruthless in exploiting them. Germany specifically targeted this space. Using their fluid ball movement, they just kept slipping players into the massive oceans of space Marcelo vacated. In fact, that first goal from a corner, that came directly from Germany exploiting this exact weakness and forcing Brazil into a frantic scramble.
All of these systemic failures compounded and led directly into an unprecedented onslaught. We are talking about 4 goals in just 6 staggering minutes. It completely turned the stadium into an arena of absolute despair. Just think about this timeline, because it honestly defies logic. At 23 minutes, Klose scores. At 24 minutes, Cruz scores. 26 minutes, Cruz again. 29 minutes, Khedira. Those early goals acted like an absolute accelerant for the national trauma in that stadium. Instead of calming down to defend, Brazil lost all tactical discipline, pushed forward recklessly, and Germany punished every single mistake.
And right in the middle of that absolute whirlwind of chaos, Miroslav Klose quietly dealt a massive psychological blow. He scored his 16th World Cup goal. Why is that number so huge? Because it broke the all-time scoring record previously held by the legendary Brazilian striker Ronaldo. To break the record of a Brazilian icon against the Brazilian national team on Brazilian soil during the worst defeat in their history, it was almost too poetic. That scrappy second goal from Klose really symbolized the passing of an era, with Germany rewriting history right in front of them. When the final whistle finally blew, a completely heartbroken Luis Felipe Scolari stepped up and took full responsibility for the total tactical and emotional collapse. This was the manager who led Brazil to glory back in 2002. Now acting as the face of their absolute darkest hour. He was totally stripped of his usual defiance, openly calling it a catastrophic, terrible loss. You had players like David Luiz leaving the pitch in tears, literally apologizing to a nation that relies on this sport not just for fun, but as a genuine source of joy and identity through everyday hardships.
But the fallout from this explainer goes way beyond just a single football tournament. This defeat became a lasting national trauma. As scholars have analyzed, the 7-1 loss really shattered that deeply held narrative of Brazilian footballing exceptionalism. And over the years that followed, against a backdrop of deep social and political polarization within the country, the iconic yellow shirt actually began to fracture as a unifying symbol. Once a universally shared emblem of joy, it started being appropriated by specific political movements, losing its consensus status and really reflecting the broader divisions of a society trying to find its footing after such a huge symbolic blow. Which really leaves us with this final, lingering thought. Germany showed us the absolute pinnacle of tactical evolution that day. But Brazil showed us exactly what happens when the massive weight of history totally breaks a team. The Mineirazo was nothing short of a cultural earthquake. When a country's very soul is built around a sport, how long does it actually take to heal after the mirror shatters in just 90 minutes?